Are you optimistic about the future of the UK at the moment?
No. The culture and the capital markets to support that at a scale that it needs to be supported to play seriously in the game. In other words, you're a guy behind, what happens is we have to enable people. Okay. What works is finding great people, talented people, and identifying those who you want to bet on and enabling them. And that works. That's the most important force, much more important than money. Okay. Because you could see who's got the money and power and where did they come from? Where did NVIDIA come from? Where do they all come from? Okay. They're guys like you, entrepreneur in a sense, who's been enabled, okay, because you have the talent and people want to bet on you, and that's the capital markets. So they give you money to help enable you because they want to bet on you, and then good things happen. The United States is very much a big picture. No, I think it's very much in this issue. So if I go down my list, it definitely has this debt money economy problem. We can get into that. Okay. It definitely has the internal conflict power in which there's a fight between the left, the hard left and the right due to wealth and values gaps and people not believing that the system will work for them. And so democracy is at risk because they don't believe this. They're not going to follow the rules in the sense they don't believe the rules are going to. Number three, it's of course the leading one side in this great power conflict of the world, right? In other words, yes, between the United States and the one side, let's say, and China and the allies, their allies on the other side. I mean, in the news, you just saw the meetings of Xi, Putin, Modi, and that group over there walking down, and okay. So now it should be pretty clear how the sides are lining up, okay? It's always better to be in a place that's not in one of those wars. Like, stay out of wars. And of course, climate has an effect. And of course, then we have technology. The United States and China are in the big technology competitions. The others are really not in the game. They don't have the money, this innovation and talent, in a sense, to play at that scale and so on. So we have a great, technology war, which can be used to create great advances, but at the same time could be used for great conflicts. And so now the question is going to be who wins the technology war, because the winner of the technology war is going to win all wars, okay? In other words, they'll win the economic war. They'll win the geopolitical war because technology. And I'm not saying anything that hasn't repeated through history. In order to understand these things, because I have to bet on what's going to happen, I'm a global macro investor. I studied the last 500 years of history, and it happens over and over again in all cases. So I could take the British Empire, I could take you through all the empires, but the Dutch Empire before that and all this, and it happens all the time. People always think that the future would be a slightly modified version of the present, and it's not. Okay, watch over decades, but it's like watching a person grow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You watch your kid or you watch a person and your age, any age,
my parents,
and that's what you see.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't see the life arc.
Yeah.
Okay. But the life arc is irrefutable.
But do you think it's conceivable that in the next 50 to 100 years, the US could no longer be the dominant power globally?
Yeah. Yeah, more than conceivable.
More than conceivable. What do you mean by more than conceivable?
I mean that these evolutions always take place, and they take place in a certain way, and that if you look at the probabilities and the paths and the symptoms, there is a challenge the United States is facing, a number of those challenges. And we're at a moment where it's a question of whether the system and the people can get control of the situations and deal with it strongly and well in a way where they are not fighting to the point of damaging each other and damaging the prospects for the future.
But I mean, the United States is very innovative. Got all these great innovative companies here, so surely...
Yeah, but you can't make generalizations about the United States, and you can't make generalizations, by the way, about the markets either. What you see is 1%, a small percentage, 1% of the population, if you're looking at the breakdown of incomes and also you're looking at the innovation, the stock markets, which stocks are doing well, who owns those companies, and all of that, about 3 million people in a country of 330 million people are really unbelievably doing great. And you could pick the neighborhoods they're in and what they're doing. And then there's the top 10%, let's say, which is the people around them, and they're really, really doing great in that world. At the same time, the bottom 60% of Americans have below a sixth grade reading level.
Wow.
And that population, in terms of the basics, being productive, you have to be productive and be prosperous. So what you need to have a successful society is to have broad-based productivity and prosperity. Okay, and that's a problem. Okay, so which America are you looking at? And are you watching the war that's happening between these? I think he sees a lot of the problem, and I think he sees the debt problem. I think he sees the internal conflict disorder problem. And I think he represents the red, let's call it the red states. I mean, you look at a map and there's red and blue and you see where they are, okay? And he represents that, and they're united behind him in terms of doing some things, okay? Mm-hmm. So he represents, let's call it the red side, which is located where the map shows red, and then there are the blue. And he views himself as somebody who needs to take charge and to do certain things. Others in that population would say those who, let's say, are not getting or having the food stamp program cut off or having other programs cut off that they're dependent on would say, wait a second, that's not representing me. And so we have gone, that population has gone to significant number behind him that are devotees. They're all in, okay? At the same time as we have the other side, which will have their devotees. If we're in New York City, okay, and the upcoming mayoral election will be an example of the two sides, okay? And they will try to use the system, but there's a question, will the system have enough support to work? Okay, but that's what we have. First of all, if you go back to the basic problem, which is there's too much debt, there are deficits, there's differences in education and opportunity levels, and so on. The most important thing that you can have is a strong middle.
Political middle.
Political middle. To be analytically strong and also strong enough to get the people to do what needs to be done, even if they don't want to do it, to get to be productive. Now, that's an easy thing to say. It's not an easy thing to do, but you do need that strong middle, and you do need to convey to people that you need to have this strong middle to change productivity. And, and are you in it? Are you in it? Are you patriotic and in it? And, but you look at history, how did the United States come to be the United States? People will go to the places that are better than them than stay in the places that are worse for them. This is fundamental, right?
Incentives.
Okay. So you have to make the place better. Okay. Now, I would say also you can take pockets and they go into the pocket and let it spread out. But you also have to have this equal education, or, you've got to strive for equal opportunity. But anyway, it's a difficult question that I'm afraid I'm incapable of solving.
It was unnerving to hear the tone of your voice drop when I asked it. You seemed slightly as if you've kind of given up on the UK a little bit. Your facial reaction.
No, I'm a practical guy. I'm a realistic guy. I made my money. I'm in the business, and it's my nature to try to be realistic and to bet on how things will transpire. And that's not healthy. The situation in the UK is not healthy. And the situation in the United States is very risky in many ways. It's what we're describing. So, and then if you look, where are people going? Then you see the places that have the qualities we're talking about. They're civil. They're creative. The people aren't at war with each other.
What happens next in history?
Well, usually there's a big fight for control.
Political revolutions and things like that.
The system breaks down because they don't trust the system. So will the legal system resolve that? Will the parliamentary system resolve these disputes satisfactorily to the satisfaction of those people and the other people who have different points of view? And the sides won't believe it. And this goes back to Rome. It goes back to Caesar, the Senate. And, this goes back through history all the time, right? In the 30s, 4 major democracies chose to be autocracies, okay? That happened in Italy, Germany, Spain, and Japan.
What's autocracy for anyone that doesn't know the word?
Well, it means a dictatorship, essentially, of a limited number of people at the top who are autocratic, which means that they are directing things rather than a democracy in which there's representatives of all different points of view that get together and follow rules to make decisions.
So the UK could become an autocracy, as could the US, I guess.
You're going to see a lot of pressure for that strong leader who will get control of things and make it work well. And and you're likely to see 2 different views as to which side, the red and the blue sides, so to speak. You're likely to see that type of clash.
You said the US is playing a risky game itself. Is that from a debt perspective or otherwise?
Well, from these things,
okay.
From the debt, from the internal conflict, from the changing world order, the geopolitical world conflict. I don't know, we're playing with nuclear weapons and, in wars in different places. And then, of course, climate, and then the technology war, how we're doing that.
I saw that image the other day of Putin and President Xi in China together, walking together. If China does become the dominant force in the world, the dominant power, is that a smooth transition? First
of all, I don't think either side is going to be the clearly dominant power for a very long time. And the quickest way to have it is some kind of a war, and that's a dangerous thing. But maybe it evolves, hopefully, the way the Soviet Union evolved, that the worry of mutually assured destruction keeps everybody not having that kind of war. And then the systems, one system or another system, wins. but that's an evolutionary process. And, I can't say well, they're long-term big cycles, right? It's like a life cycle. On average, they are about a life cycle, about 80 years. But it's not predetermined, just like your life cycle is not predetermined. Like if you take care of yourself and you don't smoke, eat well, exercise, and so on and so forth, then you will probably have a longer life cycle than if you don't take care of yourself. And it's kind of like that, and so you see them in history, they evolve, but you can see the symptoms. Okay, you can see the actions and the symptoms, which, like taking a physical, then gives you a sense of where they are in their life cycles. There's a saying in Hong Kong, a Chinese saying, which is a smart rabbit has 3 holes. And what that means is you can see, is it the UK or the US? And I can then move to the better place and get out of the place that's a terrible place. So can I successfully be an immigrant or whatever and change my location? Throughout history, that's been important. So the ability to go to good places and away from bad places. So that's part of it. Secondly, building your financial strength is important, which has to do with how you earn, spend, and save. That will determine the amount. And then what you do with that amount is invest. And so how you invest is also important. So if you have your financial ability and you can make the move, and then you have knowledge, about what's happening so that you can change things,